Where's the go live button? Okay. Hit the go live button. And I sent an invite out to Matt, so he might show up randomly. We'll see. Alright, so we are live.
Alrighty, hold on, I am recording.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Green Pack.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. Nathan. Tonight we've got an exciting show for you. All kinds of fun stuff to talk about. So everyone strap in, because here we go. Let's see, there is a drought. Are you guys in the drought zone?
Don't think so. I haven't heard anything about it.
Oh, yeah, there's a horrible drought. And it's affecting, well, it's basically, I mean, it's kind of what's going on out west.
Oh, is this another California-based thing?
Well, but the western United States. But yeah, it starts at California is like the worst. Southern California, it's completely buried.
Yeah, because I saw some. All I saw was a picture of like California today and California 10 years ago, and there's like a bridge, and it's like, like in the earlier picture, it's like the bridge is underwater, and then the latest picture, like all the pylons are supposed to be underwater are completely like just out in the open and bare.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what 1 trillion liters of water being missing is like, or something like that. I don't know.
Where did it go? Almond farms. According to Goliath, was that season 3?
I think I still haven't watched season 3. There's a lot of season 3s I've been meaning to watch, like that and season 3 of True Detective.
Oh, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's a bit better than the second one. So there's a drought there. It's tremendously hot. You know, they say it's like 80 degrees at midnight and stuff in places, but you know, it's bad. But all those states are, it's like you guys were talking about Idaho on the last podcast. The reason it's the fastest growing state in the country, those people are coming from California. Because you can't live in a desert, no matter how much water you pump in.
So they aren't just all leaving for Texas. They didn't all follow Joe Rogan.
No.
Is there another podcast scion that moved to Idaho?
No, there's a lot of guys who are on podcasts that live in Idaho but have jobs they can do. Like, it doesn't require them to live in the places that they live. But or people are just retiring where you don't have, 12% sales tax and shit like that. California is unlivable the way it is now. It's just it's never been livable to me. I always look at that and I'm like, how the fuck do you do that? I mean,
the kind of money that's like swimming through there. It's like, if you can grab it, it's like, yay, opportunity. But if you're a normal person, like, no, you're fucked.
Well, it's just when I hear about like 12-minute car rides that take 2.5 hours because there's so many, it's like, okay, that's not livable. Let's I understand traffic slowdowns and stuff, but just daily gridlock, like Tuesday at noon, it's like takes 2 hours to go 15 miles. Like, well, that's not livable.
Yeah, that's why I got people that just like learn how to like, I'm just gonna get a helicopter.
Yeah, how to fly a helicopter. Yeah, if you have millions of dollars, I'm sure it's a nice place to live. I'm sure Russia's a nice place to live.
Probably everywhere is pretty nice to live if you have millions of dollars. So
yeah. So that's yep. And the food situation in North Korea is tense, according to the North Korean dear leader.
Okay, so
First
that's like
time they've ever
100.
admitted
So that's
there's
about
a problem
100
with
times
North
worse
Korea.
than they're projecting.
Pretty much a bunch of bananas would cost you $45 US there right now. And I don't know what bananas cost before in North
They
Korea.
have
I no
bananas in Korea.
baseline.
See, just insert everything, and then that would be my incredulous remark.
Yeah. They have oxygen in Korea? North Korea.
Yeah.
Korea, they have everything.
South Korea or America 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. So that's not good news because they get all their food from China almost exclusively. So that means the food situation in China is also probably
it always
tense.
is. Because isn't that like how they're basically destroying like all the sea life just to feed their people?
Well, I'll tell you something I read. Did I tell you this thing about China about
I
the
don't think
baby
so.
food? Okay, this is again Wall Street Journal. This is why I read it. It was one of the grocery stores in Europe wanted to start in America, but a lot of them go to Australia first because we basically have a very similar diet to what goes here goes in Australia too. We kind of eat similar amounts of meat and types of food and stuff. So they do a kind of a startup in Australia to see what how well it might or might not work in America and parts of America, and they all of a sudden, and this was in 2018, 2019, all of a sudden this grocery store couldn't keep any formula in the grocery stores. It was like, where's all this baby formula going? Well, the Chinese students that are going to Australian universities were just buying all the baby formula they could out of the store and shipping it to China and selling it 3 times the price. They were essentially paying for their college. And that led to like other questions like, why are they having to do that? Well, it turns out because most baby food is made out of cow's milk. Okay. There's a whole chain of shit here. And this is what I read. I didn't go research this myself. But anyway, well, because we've cut back, we've embargoed them food imports and stuff. And they buy a lot of food from us. And especially a lot of animal feed and stuff. They don't buy a lot of like bread and goods like that from us, but they do buy a lot of animal feed. Well, they've been embargoed because of all their criminality and all their stealing of, intellectual property stuff and all this that they just won't recognize. So we embargoed them, and Trump started it. Biden's continued it. The sanctions stay the same. Well, all of a sudden their cows are half the size. So then they get half the milk. So then you get, you got to make baby milk out of something. So they're trying to put soy and other stuff in it. And essentially the stuff is so bad. Like if you shipped a container of this Chinese baby formula to America, we would have to like do some kind of hazmat disposal of it because it's terrible. And people in China know that. So, but again, this is what is command state-run economy like they have come when it comes to stuff like this. So if that's going on in 2018, 2019, I can't imagine what the fuck's going on now. And again, I don't say this with any glee. I don't hate the Chinese people. I just don't like their government. This isn't a beef with the Chinese and this is terrible that kids are having to drink toxic waste. But it's like, well, when you got a government that just wants to flex its muscle with the people that are fucking feeding them, it's like, okay, well, we have a few simple options. We can send our whole Navy your way and duke it out, or we can just, cut back on the grain import, whatever. One is a cheaper option for us than the other. So, but yeah, so if North Korea is saying that, then it's probably pretty bad in China too. But China, they love processed food. And I heard like before the pandemic, when the embargo started, a lot of Chinese people started buying basically the versions of, corn chips and stuff. Like that's real popular there. And they got the idea from us. But that stuff like keeps forever. So there's just houses full of like, lay corn chips and stuff, or their version of it. But, yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah,
do you know what Cool Ranch Doritos are called in Europe? American Cool. No. Doritos.
Nice. They have like Uncle Sam holding the flag on a Dorito.
I think it's American Cool. It's American something, but yeah. Apparently,
It
like
could be.
Cool Ranch doesn't sound appealing to them, so it's like the Americans like these things. So.
Oh. Yeah, be like the Americans, fat. But yeah, so like again, if I can read an obscure article like that in the Times, which is why I read the Times, it's like that's scary
Yeah.
to me. You don't hear that on the main news, and it's like, well, what the hell? Does
Unless
this,
they don't
who's
mind,
talking about
unless like
this?
they don't mind telling us it because they're not bothering to tell their people what's going on. Like, yeah, we'll tell the world, but we're not telling our people.
Well, this is one of those like, what do you call this? Like tertiary intelligence or something. Like there's no solid sources here. There's no facts and numbers. There's no like government minister Zhao says that we're starving to death. But this when people are willing to pay like, basically, I don't know, $20 for a thing of formula, which, a thing of formula doesn't last very long. It's about 3 bottles worth back when I was buying it. So if I was paying $20 a bottle for that, it's like, it's $200 a week to feed my kid. So, and that's like infant formula and stuff like that. That's like just day one shit. That's like grain, gasoline, baby formula. Because almost nobody breastfeeds their children anywhere in the world anymore. Some places do, but it's it's not a thing that goes on a lot. So it's one of those staple crops. Like if that's going south, then everything else is following after. Which you don't want. You don't want 1 billion starving Chinamen because then people get desperate and things like nuclear bombs don't seem so unreasonable. It's
We've
like,
kicked off the water and food wars early.
Yeah. Because that's what the next wars are going to be about. I mean, I don't know. You can read shit from the 70s and 80s. Like, we've only got an inch of topsoil left. We're fucked. And then like we solve that problem. Basically with fertilizers, which are a bunch of chemicals, which are made from petroleum, which, they have their own sideline risk. But.
Well, and there's like a lot of advancements in crop rotations where basically you're not destroying you can grow crops too, basically like, because there's like the thing, you grow soy because it leaves a lot of nitrogen in the soil, and then like corn loves nitrogen in the soil, and then you grow corn, and then but also like when you grow corn, it like strengthens the ground so you don't get like a dust bowl and stuff like that. There's all this cool modern farming stuff
Yeah, and we do that in this country, and you know why? Because the government heavily subsidizes food production in this country and food science and everything else, and we tell the farmers to do, and they do it. It's one of the few places in America where people listen to the government. Except for the people that want to graze their cattle on protected land and get in a shootout with a bunch of cops. Like, okay, this is brilliant. Freedom.
I love that bit in King Corn where they're growing like just like an acre of corn, and there's the part where like they just have like a truck with a bunch of nitrogen in it, and they just infuse the ground with nitrogen. It's like, that's some sci-fi shit.
Just put that pipe in the ground. Stuff's like 300 degrees below freezing. Just get her in there. See what happens.
And then the other bit where like they make high fructose corn syrup, but like they have to use like sulfuric acid as a part of it.
But the guy doing it says, I can't tell you that this is the way high fructose corn syrup is made, but we're gonna make it. And we just pour like cornmeal, you pour acid in it, and this stuff drips out. It's like, you can't eat that. There was hydrochloric acid. No, yeah, you can.
Well, once it turns into a compound, you're good.
It's good. Could you drink sulfuric acid? No, it'd kill you. Could you eat that ground up corn? It'd make you sick. But if you mix them together, you get a delicious.
That will kill you eventually.
That will kill you in the long term.
Yeah.
But you're going to die anyway, so. Actually, sugar is really cheap now.
Yeah.
I don't
Well, I didn't realize. I forget. It was another like back when I used to just idly leave the History Channel thing on, and you'd like learn like really random facts. Other than now it's just Pawn Stars, but like you used to learn like, hey, did you know that most of sugar in the world comes from beets? It's like, what? I fucking hate beets. And it was like, well, where's the other? It's like, where's real sugar come from? It's like, well, sugar cane, but that's like in other places. But no, if you want sugar, you're getting it from fucking beets.
Oh,
Yeah.
mainly Cuba, where and those countries in that whole arc down there, and yeah, it takes a tropical climate to grow sugar cane, and most of the countries that grew sugar cane were not direct allies of the U.S. So that's why we invented corn syrup in the '60s, because we're going to stick it to the commies, and we did. Now everyone weighs 800 pounds, and there's like no reason.
Yeah, you can still get Mexican Cokes and stuff.
Oh well, everything here you can get Coke with this, or you can get like
I think they
sometimes
still
I'll
sell
get
the
Mountain Dew,
the
but
cane sugar Mountain Dews.
yeah, you can get it in like 40 packs at the discount club. It's the one with the hillbilly on the front with the hat. Yeah, yep, that's most of the stuff I get. Oh, let's see. I got a wonderful gift for Father's Day that I never would have got for myself. Barrett 50 caliber. No, I'm kidding. It's one of these ridiculous things.
Sponsored by Yeti.
Yeah. Well, it better be. My God. I mean, this is one of those things like I'm not buying that, but if people want to give it to me as a gift, okay. So I'm going to try it because I used to buy those off-brand things at Walmart that was like Yeti. It was Yeti-like.
It was even less than Igloo.
$50 or something. Yeah. No, it was more than Igloo because it was bigger and it had thicker wall. And they worked fine. There was nothing wrong with them, but I couldn't find them anymore. And the zipper just broke on mine. Because I put I put stuff in there and then I have to walk like a half a mile into the plant. I've been walking into the plant now for a year and a half. So that thing's just like, it's like I'm backpacking with it. So the zipper failed. And I went to the Walmart website. I was like, well, I better get another one. They don't make those anymore. And I went and looked it up. It's like, why don't they make Yeti won a lawsuit against them. It's like, oh, okay. So now I have to buy the really ridiculously. And I would have been fine with this. Like I said, I don't mind paying money for things like that, for nice things. But it says right on it, designed in Texas, made in the Philippines. It's like, what? Why does this cost so much? Then if it was made with the hands of Texans, just men and women in cowboy hats working in that sweatshop or whatever, it's like, why does this cost so much? And you've been making them for years too. It's not like a new product. You've been making this stuff for 20 years. So now they used to make them in where you live. I think they made the hard coolers there. They'd injection mold them or whatever. But yeah, but this is like made in the Philippines. It's like, well, why does this cost? If I bought a Rolex and it said made in China, I'd be like, nope. No, I want an angry Swissman, a very efficient Swiss watchmaker who's kind of perturbed by my existence to make my Rolex.
Yeah, it's like the same thing with all the Breville stuff. Like Breville makes like really good stuff, but it says like designed and engineered in England. It's like, but made in China. It's like, why does this cost $800?
Yeah. I got a Breville toaster that's like wonderful. It's amazing. And I like it. It has all the weird, like if you want it to go longer, it doesn't say like extend or whatever. It says a bit more. It has all those little like English things on it. And it's like, yeah, this is a very expensive toaster made in a sweatshop in China. It's like, I do not want to pay
sometimes like people who like, I don't know, like sometimes they get it right where it's like, okay, we're going to China because it costs nothing to hire people. So we're going to hire a lot of people, and then you're going to have like a lot of quality control. Maybe. But then there's sometimes like, okay, we're going to move this operation from America where we're like use the minimum amount of people we can to make this product as good as we can. And we're going to use the same amount of people in China to make the same thing.
They don't give a shit. We live in a communist country and the government's going to give them a job, wherever. Yeah, I don't like that. Like I said, I don't mind paying for nice things. I don't mind buying. I have a lot of European cookware and stuff and knives and forks. It all costs a lot of money. And I don't mind paying for it because I know I'm probably going to be giving it to Grayson when I die. I'm just me clutching a spoon and a knife in my coffin. But I don't mind paying for that, but I do mind when it says made in China. It's like, well, I can go fucking buy shit like this for a quarter of the cost. And it probably lasts just as long.
Oh, yeah, I got it's like a massage gun.
Yeah.
And like I know a popular one's called a Theragun, but then I was watching some F1 stuff and I saw the thing they were using. It's like, all right, and so I looked it up and it's like, the thing they were using was like $500. It's like, Jesus Christ. So I got one that was like slightly less. The same company, it was $300. It's like, all right, but Amazon has 40 different versions. It looks exactly like the thing I bought for $30.
Yeah. Well, again, this is why we have a trade war with China.
Or even like stuff, I look up like 3D printers, and it's like, if you know what you're doing, like if you know like where, like if you know like the whole like destination and shipping where everything is like comes from, where it's made, you can get some like knockoff shit that's like that's good, that would be like $800, and if you know what you're doing, you can get it for like, you know, for like 1/8 of the price or 1/10 of the price. But it's a roll of the dice, because sometimes you just get the pure crap they threw together and like that they threw the brand name thing on, and sometimes you get the brand name thing for like 1/10 of the price.
Well, it's like the Dyson, like the people who make $500 hair dryers and stuff. It's all made in Malaysia, and places like that. It's like, what are you charging me for? And I get it, the Apple stuff's all made in China. Well, most of it is, a lot of it is. But I'm not too impressed with the quality on some of that either. It's like, I've had things break before from Apple, and you go to the Apple store and they're like, oh, let us go get you another one. Don't ever talk about it again. It's like, okay, well, this one, I'm not paying for it again, so I guess this works. But it's like that whole thing, like, would you pay $200 more for an iPhone if it was made in America? I was like, yes. I wouldn't buy one every year. I mean, I don't anyway. I just buy it till the battery quits working. But
and as we've learned, that's intentional by Apple.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the reason my iPhones have lasted as long as they did, because it was basically a government-mandated replacement. And there's like, oh, bring it in, we'll look it over. It's okay, give me the new one. It's whatever you did, just transfer it over.
Yeah, because they have...
Oh, no, we just want to do a quality check. Just give me the new phone. Stop it. What, you're going to find out something's wrong with it.
Well, because they found out, I forget what it was exactly, but basically, like, you update your iPhone, and if it's old enough, there's basically like secret back-end software that's, yeah, it's just basically it's like either destroying your battery intentionally, or just it makes your battery reading go down. And it's falsely, but it's not real. It's what do they call it? Planned obsolescence. Yeah.
Surprise, said no one, including the people at Apple. They're like, okay, we went to court, we lost.
There's a reason I don't buy Apple products anymore.
Well, I assume everyone's doing that. Some form of that.
Well, I've just had so many like just break on me, and it's like, oh man, this thing is so cool, but like I fucking can't keep buying this same fucking thing if it's just gonna break and not work. I don't care how user friendly it is. Like, fuck this.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with their computers, but yeah, some of their other products are not.
Well, I mean,
impressed me. What they did with the iPod.
I mean, I've just never used an iPhone, but so many people love them, and you know, all the new stuff they do. It's like, well, that seemed pretty cool, but like I just don't care. Like I always have like, I've never current with any phone. Like I'm just like, I'm fine with with what I got, and I'm always like 3 years behind.
Yeah, I had a Galaxy S5 until the S10 came out, because you could buy batteries for those. Now, of course, for some reason, the branded batteries I bought is like the first one lasted me 3 years, the second one lasted me 2 years, the third one lasted me a year. It's like I'm seeing a trend here. But the only reason I got into the iPhones was because they were like the same price as everything else.
Well, and
So
you
then
got
it's like,
you
oh,
got
okay,
your whole
well, then
ecosystem,
everything-
so it makes sense for you. Like I mean, and like most
Yeah,
of your
everything-
stuff doesn't break. Like I was literally because I was doing a lot of like I used to do like all my podcasts through the iPod Shuffle or the Nano and stuff. The Nano was great. Man, they had this one that just had a button on it. And it was like it was great for podcasts,
yeah.
and especially if like you're driving and it's like plugged into your car because it's all tactile. Like you don't have to like look at it while you're driving to switch to podcast. And they had the thing where like you're switching to a podcast, it would announce like what you're going to. And it was like, this is fantastic. And I literally like had them at the gym and sweat through 3 of them. It's like, okay, well, I can't fucking buy these anymore. And then eventually my phone became my iPod. And then I never used any Apple software again because iTunes is just, I don't know, they do something awful on iTunes on Windows. Like it just like it's very bloated and makes everything run slower. It's like just get rid of that too. This is becoming more of a hassle than a solution.
Yeah, it was my least favorite thing on my Samsung was accessing iTunes because for some reason that was just to crawl through the mud. It's like that phone was fast as shit on anything else. It could even do internet stuff fast, and this was back when 3G was the going thing. It was pretty damn fast. But yeah, for some reason I turn on iTunes and we're just spiraling, and I was like, what's going on here?
But that's, man, I mean, like you have like, you know, you got your Apple Watch you like, you got an iPhone and your Mac, so it seems to work pretty good for you. But
well, this Mac is 8 years old now. It's been a while.
No,
and it's not going to be replaced anytime soon. They're going to quit making them. It's like, okay, well, I'll just keep this
even
until
if
it's time.
they quit making them, they can't make enough anyway. So
Yeah, so I'll just be waiting another year or more. I mean, I'll just wait until it stops working. I always get they'll still give me $500. Is like the last one I brought in. Does this turn on? I said, yeah, but it kind of freezes. Like, okay, but it does turn on. It's like, yeah, turn it on, and it did. And they're like, okay, $500. Like, cool. Because it's essentially the same fucking computer. It's a little bit faster, a little bit more memory. That's it.
yeah,
But I don't do anything but watch movies on it. I'm not like testing it out.
yeah, they have some interesting like industrial made like high end stuff but you can't get it on the consumer market that Apple makes it, where it's just like a weird like barrel that's just a hypercomputer. And it's like, you do effects work, right? Yeah. All right, we'll sell you this $10,000 computer.
Yeah, I was going to say you can get them, but they cost $10,000, and you have to have a corporate account with them or something. I like because somebody paid the $500 to put because they made an aluminum Apple frame for the Super Mac to sit in, and you could buy the $500 frame and the wheels, but the wheels don't lock. And this guy was putting it on the floor, and his supercomputer was slowly rolling away. It's like, these wheels don't lock. And then he bought at Harbor Freight. These wheels do. And he popped them right in and locked it, and his supercomputer stopped rolling away. Like, I should have done this first. Oh, yeah, Apple has crazy shit. It's just like their headphones. You know anyone that has those?
I don't, but a lot of people do.
Oh, I've
Really?
never seen a pair of them. I see a lot of the ones like I have. Like I have the Bose. I have the latest edition Bose wireless, the big noise canceling ones. But I've never seen any of those Apple headphones because they're like as much.
I see them. I see them a lot, but also there could be a lot of knockoffs because it's all you see is the stems coming out of people's ears. You don't really notice it. I mean, I hear they're.
No, I mean around the ear headphones.
Huh.
I've never seen anyone that has.
Is that for like studio stuff?
the
Is that why people don't wear them outside of a studio?
Oh, let me look. I'm on their website right now. What are those things called? Yeah, let's go to accessories. Yeah, they're called the AirPod Max, and they're just around the ear noise canceling headphones. They're like $600. Like I don't know anyone that has those. But I know a lot of people that have like my Bose, and those Bose noise canceling headphones were not cheap. They weren't $600 because the Bose or the Apple looks a lot like the Bowers and Wilkins.
Yeah.
Those really expensive headphones that we were circling around like, no, I'm not going to do it. But then the sheepskin looks nice. sheepskin headphone thing. That sounds nice. But then I can imagine myself like what I was doing with my bows, where I'm like welding and grinding on a mower deck. I can't imagine doing that with the Bowers and Wilkins on, even though I could not hear the grinder through the bows, and I could hear the just fine. It's like somehow I would feel like I shouldn't be doing that with. So it's like welding with a suit on. It's like, this is gonna go bad. Oh. But yeah. I don't know anyone that has those.
Yeah, I've never seen those, but I don't know. Maybe I have. I don't know.
But those, yeah, I mean, they look like a lot like the Bowers and Wilkins, like N5 or whatever they were called. They look really expensive, which is the problem because people just grab those off your head and run. And all I could do is shoot them in the back, and you're not supposed to do that for private property, which is like, what? Oh, okay.
I got sort of an F1 update. It's mostly an IndyCar update, but I just included the same thing. We got the French Grand Prix this weekend. Qualifying was today, so Max Verstappen put it on pole, Lewis Hamilton in second, and Valtteri Bottas in third. So it's like it's the most expected result you could think of.
Standard F1.
It's the most if it stays that way, that's the most prolific podium in the history of F1 is Max Verstappen, Hamilton, and Bottas. Yeah. Really? Well, it's because they do more races than they did in the old. Like F1 in like the 90s, it was like a 12 race season. Yeah.
Oh, so, really? Okay.
So a lot of those like weird records are being broken now just purely by the amount of races that they have now. But an interesting thing with Mercedes is that see how Bottas has kind of been like not doing so hot for this whole season. I mean, he's got a couple podiums, but so they him and Hamilton like switched chassis. So the car that Hamilton's been driving now Bottas has, and vice versa. And so Bottas had a really good practice session, and he had some pretty good qualifying. Hamilton still ended up out qualifying him, but like at least he's not like qualifying in 16th place like he's done the last couple times.
Yeah.
Although in Monaco he just got totally fucked. Like he was in second place and then he wasn't. So
that was the one where they left the second place.
Yeah. Well, no, the pole was left open. Yeah.
The pole was left open. Okay, yeah.
So Alonso did pretty well. I think he like qualified in like 5th or something like that. Like, yeah, it was funny. Like, because this is more of a standard track. It's not like these road courses like we've been having. So, like, I think things are coming back towards Alpine. Because like when they're in Spain and Portugal, like they actually did pretty well, and they don't know why, which that's always like a fun problem. It's like, oh, we thought we were gonna be terrible. It's like we did pretty good. It's like, why? It's like, oh, we don't know.
Yeah. When it comes to bad news, we have no fucking idea why.
Well, I think what's interesting is like I believe the team principal for Alpine, because they kicked out last year Abitable, they kicked him out. And the guy that got this, he comes from MotoGP. He's like their team principal. He was like a 7-time champion in MotoGP as a team principal in MotoGP. Yeah.
That's motorcycle racing, right? Okay. Or the ones guys where the guys lean almost completely sideways and it was completely, yep. Okay.
And an unfortunate death this year. Yeah, but it was in one of their junior series, so it's like even sadder because I think the kid was like 18 years old. Died during practice.
Oh, God. The only stuff I've seen from MotoGP is when the guys get too close in the corners and they wreck. And they slide off these motorcycles at like 180 miles an hour, unhurt, get off and start swinging at each other. Those are the MotoGP videos I've seen where two. It's like they should be hugging each other, like we're not dead, but no, they're just going to come off swinging.
Yeah, I forget. There's a good documentary I heard about it that they have on it. That's interesting. And I guess and like almost like 10 minutes of the documentary is them talking about like all the shoulder injuries that all these guys have. And apparently there's like this one special doctor where it's like if you get a separated shoulder, like he'll basically just hot glue your shoulder back together and you can go racing next weekend. It's like it's not a long-term fix because like this one doctor is like constantly doing this to all these MotoGP drivers, but like it'll do you for a weekend.
Get back on that bike for a weekend and then just a life of agony.
And I forget what specifically it is because it's not necessarily like it is them falling off the bike and hitting shoulder first, but it's also just like how they have to like muscle the bike around. It just causes separated shoulders. So
yeah, well, as a bike, when you ride a motorcycle, you're dealing with a very specific kind of centrifugal force from those two wheels because the natural state is to be upright. So when you got to muscle that bike over, and when I was riding motorcycles, you gently, pushed in the opposite direction on the handlebars and you moved around the corner. But as fast as they're going, they're probably really having to muscle that bike just to get it from its upright position to fight it down into the corner and then back up without, because if you come up too fast, you'll flip over. So it's like, I know from riding Harley Davidsons at 70 miles an hour, which weigh a lot more than those bikes, but it's like I can't imagine those guys having to do that for hours. Just fight that force that is trying to keep the bike upright.
So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything. It's not really. I'm trying to think of like all the back end like stuff where people are trying to make things happen in the media. Oh yeah, there was the weird Pirelli thing where Pirelli basically found, well, we're not at fault. Red Bull's not at fault. Aston Martin's not at fault. So nobody's at fault. Tire just exploded.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, what the fuck are they talking about? But then like somebody was trying to explain that this is a weird backhanded, like they're really placing the blame on Red Bull and Aston Martin for like fucking with the tires. That like so now like all the tires are being like the tire pressure is being measured like constantly by to like make sure because they're saying something like, no, we know what happened. They did something where like they put a lot of heat in the tires so that the pressure read higher, and then when they cooled down there was less pressure actually in the tire. And then like people are trying to link things where it's like that Perez got like this trick that Aston Martin does when he was with Racing Point. Like he brought that trick over to Red Bull, and that's why both these teams had their tires explode. It's like this one trick that both the teams do now apparently. There's no confirmation of any of that shit. It's just wild speculation. But
that's Formula One. We think this is happening. We know this is happening, but no.
And then there's, well, then the other funny thing is like, it's like, oh yeah, it's like, it looks like Pirelli's having a problem. Like, well, let's have Pirelli investigate it. Surely they'll tell us the truth.
Yeah.
It's not like a giant PR scandal for their whole entire company if they go out there and tell the truth.
Yeah, it's always best to let the people that like stab the most to lose. It's like, we're going to get honesty out of this.
All right. So yeah, the thing with the French GP or French GP, whatever. French Grand Prix is that like there's like a huge amount of runoff area because there's this one part of the track that has like a bunch of like red and blue all over it, and it's like squiggly lines, and it's like really fucking weird because like this track layout could technically have like 167 different like permutations, and it's because this middle part there's like you can do anything with it, and so it looks really weird and confusing. And
Yeah, when I looked at it from the top, it looked like
Yeah.
an airport. It's like, what are they landing
Yeah,
aircraft in there?
they basically
while
just
they're
drew a
having the
bunch of weird
race?
lines on a parking lot. It's like, this is a racetrack. And
Yeah.
then, but like also those red and blue lines, they're like weird. They're different than the asphalt. Like they're almost like sandpapery. And so like if you go off the track, like they're gonna fuck up your tires, which.
Oh, it's just gonna.
But they also
grind
like
them down.
in like a safety way, like they slow your car down, but they also destroy your tires.
Yeah. You'll be out of the race either way, but the frame of your car won't be bent in two.
But it's still a bunch of red flags in qualifying, so that was weird because it wasn't like they seem to just be throwing out the red flags. Because like with this race, like there wasn't a thing where like people hit a wall, and they ended their race and like they had to go recover the vehicle, but it wasn't like. Usually a race gets red flagged when like a barrier is destroyed, and it's like we need to repair the barrier and we need to stop everything to do that. But here there's no barriers destroyed. They're just like throwing out red flags and then seeing the weird shit that happened, which I think because of that, like Lance Stroll got like a lap time deleted, and then and then the session got red flagged, so he didn't have like a time. But somehow he ends up in like 19th place, so he got fucked out of that. But the happy thing is Mick Schumacher made it to Q2 with his Haas. But then he wrecked at the end of the qualifying session, so he made it into Q2, but he couldn't participate in Q2. But that's their first
Haas.
Q2 this year, so there's that.
Just keep throwing money at that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, they're doing no development on this year's car. So supposedly, all the money that they would be throwing into this year's car is getting thrown into next year's car. Yeah.
Oh, the ground effect cars.
So,
okay.
There's all the potential in the world that, like, when we come into next season, like, Haas is going to be the news for Mercedes. I fucking doubt it, but, there's all the potential in the world for that to happen.
Vacuum car.
Because you are seeing shit where, like, Mercedes is having a lot of trouble dealing with the new, what do you call that? The price. What's that?
Wayne? Huh?
Salary cap, yeah.
Price cap.
Where like like they lose a front wing or like one of their cars gets totaled, and it's like, dude, I don't think we can make it to next week. And it's like hearing Mercedes, and they could just be whining, but it's like hearing Mercedes say that. It's like Haas and Williams would have to be laughing at that. It's like, dude, we didn't make it to next week. Tell me again about your problems, Mercedes.
Yeah.
But pretty much every team's been saying every time like one of their cars gets wrecked, it's like, I don't think we'll have a car next week. I mean, that's just what they say, but that's also them bitching to. That's like subtle bitching to the FIA. It's like, hey, we need more money. And they're like, no, that's the idea. You can't just throw money at it until you win.
Yep, that's like just lodging that complaint over and over and over again. Well, didn't Toto Wolff make some like weird remark about, well, we're not announcing any team lineup for next year, like throwing that shit out there? It's like, oh, who are we trying to intimidate?
Yeah, there's been a lot of weird shit about like, oh, it looks like we're kicking Bottas out, but there's also like, yeah, I mean, this is how F1 works. Like, because it's international, you get international news that's just like chime in with their bullshit, and then it's like, man, what's real? It's like nothing.
You're getting conspiracy theories from every
translated conspiracy theories. Oh yeah, the best ones are like when they come out of Germany, because like it has so much like data behind it. It's like, is this real? Like maybe it's real.
The Germans love David conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
that's why I was shocked to hear like shit like QAnon was gaining traction in Europe. Is like, Oh, I think that's dumb, and I'm an American, and I can see through that. It's like, aren't you guys more sophisticated? But no, a lot of them aren't. I mean, they're more sophisticated when it comes to like football scores, and by football I mean soccer or things like that. But they're not, yeah, they're just as susceptible to horse shit. Well, especially Germans have a history of being susceptible to horse shit. Run down some dark roads, I've heard.
But like, oh yeah, so yeah, there was a thing where like Bottas, like he had his Mercedes AMG that like presumably either he bought it himself or like the Mercedes gave it to him, but he is putting it up for auction. It's like, well, that's a signal. He's leaving Mercedes.
Let's sift through the leaves of tea here.
And it's totally possible, but mostly see the thing that seems to be is there where like kind of all the rumor and conjecture comes out is because you have Red Bull, and Red Bull is just like constantly like just firing their second driver. It's like, nobody can race next to Max Verstappen. It's like, we'll just get another young guy in here, see if he works. Like, nope. And because that was so prevalent, that people are transferring that kind of energy over to Mercedes. And because Mercedes seems a little bit more desperate, there's like, they're going to make a move to try to win this Constructors Champion and bring it up Russell. And that's why they call this shit silly season, because weird shit can happen. But Mercedes doesn't seem like, I don't necessarily think they're going to abandon Bottas this season. Totally can, but I don't think so, because like one of the things that Bottas does very well for them is he doesn't piss off Lewis Hamilton. Like, Bottas is a good driver. He's not the best. He's not better than Lewis Hamilton, but he's good. But he's fair. And if he's fighting with Lewis Hamilton, he's not putting Lewis Hamilton into a fucking wall.
Yeah, that's good that you don't put your prime driver, who will almost always win the race, or if he doesn't, it's because something completely nightmarish happened. It's good if you don't put him in the wall. And that's actually been a problem in Formula One before, where the second is like doing stuff like that, cutting them off at the fucking pit stops. And it's like, what is this?
So I think they're going to keep Bottas around, especially if this chassis switch like is working on Bottas's half, which it seems to be working pretty well, but like it'd also be weird too. But also, like, comparatively, like, Bottas is like pretty affordable for them. Like, they're paying him $10 million a year, which is a lot. But what are they paying Lewis Hamilton? $40 million. But he's worth it. Which is a lot. Because for the past how many ever years, if he didn't have a teammate, they still would have won the Constructors' Championship. So Bottas could crash. Those years, Bottas could have crashed at every race, and they still would have won the Constructors' Championship, which is worth more than $40 million. So that's a steal.
Oh yeah, those are like I don't know. Do we have sports people that make that kind of money?
Yeah, but usually that's like endorsements. But
yeah, this is straight up. Does Hamilton do endorsements and get to keep that money?
Yeah,
mainly in Europe. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's nothing we know about. It's Liqui Moly or whatever that shit is. Was it Emirates? It's like they're. I think it's a like an airplane company, or what do you call it?
Yeah, it's UAE's National Airlines. All the guys that are into soccer around here, they all wear Emirates shirts because they sponsor American soccer teams. Like, oh, that's weird. Okay,
yeah, that's it. And Rolex, they're plaster all our shit. And Richard Mille, like, they're another watchmaker that's splattered on like every car. There's a lot of.
I like the dark sponsors, like the people that like had energy that didn't exist.
Rich Energy, yeah, that was a great one.
Yeah,
that was a good looking car too. I missed that. That Rich Energy Haas car.
The antler. Yeah.
I like the one sponsor that McLaren has called Dark Trace, which I assume is just some weird web-based thing that like sees like people are stealing your information, but like I don't know. It's just could be just like a really bad like gang and with the wide open like we sponsor McLaren. Like what do you do? Like we rob people.
Well, they're talking about what was it? Some of the soccer teams in Mexico. It's like some of these teams were showing up with like they had like world class Olympic training facilities, and these are regional teams. We're not talking about national World Cup standing. These are like the development, like the farm teams, like we have in baseball here. Yeah, it's all cartel money, but the local people the local government just kind of looks the other way. It's like, hey, we couldn't have a soccer thing like that for our kids. So but like I said, you go through these videos, it looks like like buildings with swooping arches and circular stuff, and like the best trainers in the world or the best trainers you can get for that. And it's like, yeah, this is all cartel. Nobody's supporting this around here. This is all cartel. But you gotta do what you gotta do. That's your national business. That's Mexico's most successful business besides oil is being America's drug dealer.
But that's mostly what I remember about F1 this week. But we're got a triple header coming up, so it'll be a lot of news.
We're going to be inundated with F1. So what'd you have?
IndyCar. A lot of interesting Grosjean stuff.
Okay. Is he making his mark?
Yeah, I mean, he got that pole. So last week they had a doubleheader in Detroit. So they had 2 races over the weekend. And they seem to be really good races as far as I know. Grosjean had 2 top 10 qualifying sessions, but like mechanical issues, he had to retire from both races.
Okay.
Is it Belle Isle? Does that ring a bell? Okay, so that's where they were racing. Yes. And
the brand that was rebuilt like 4 years ago. It's all new.
Apparently, it's very bumpy.
Now it's Michigan Road, so it has to find out what we're known for.
So I believe it was the second race. Grosjean's front brakes caught on fire, so he stops the car, and he gets away from a car catching on fire. It's like, oh, he's used to this, and then he sees like one of the marshals like through the fence or waving the yellow flag, and he runs up to him. It's like, hey, give me a fire extinguisher, and he runs back over to his car to like try to start putting out his car. And then like the fire marshal truck like pulls up, and they basically had to like restrain Grosjean from like firefighting his car. So it's like that's fun. Just adding to the mythos of Grosjean.
Yeah, he's used to this. He knows what he's doing. Just give him one of those funny hats.
And then the Detroit Fire Department gave him a shirt like afterwards for fighting the fire. So. I mean, he probably did save his car because, like, I've seen the last year's Indianapolis 500. Like, those brakes can destroy an entire car if you don't stop them from catching on fire.
Oh yeah, that's a dangerous fire too because those magnesium.
I don't know about the IndyCar ones, but probably.
Yeah, that's a hot fire. No, the Belle Isle racetrack's been there for a long time, but I guess they just recently redid it. But like I said, it's they probably put some gravel in there so you can probably put some salt on it too, just so you have a Michigan road experience. It's really hard to get to that too.
Okay, that's what I figured. Yeah, because I saw like pictures of it, and it was pointing outward, and it's like, well, there's the Detroit skyline, but like they're not in the middle of Detroit, but they're near it.
No, that's the one. If you go, what was the rules with Bell? Because they got all kinds of restricted entry into Canada now because of coronavirus. So it was like if you go halfway out, you're like in Canada, like, and so you have to have a passport, but you're technically not supposed to go to Canada in your drinking boat. So I've never had that problem.
And I guess Grosjean is going to do one oval course this year. So. I think the last oval course they do this year, it's the smallest one, so it's the one with the least amount of speed. So he's going to do that one. Because I guess after like he had like a lot of inspiration after when he did the Indy GP race and he came in second, and he got the pole, but he's kind of bummed he didn't win the race. But like, so like when they do interviews, like the interview is like broadcast through like the stadium or through the area, so you can hear it. And so like there's still a bunch of people there when they're interviewing, and it's like, oh, we have Romain Grosjean here, and like when they heard his name, like everybody that was left, which was still like thousands of people, gave him a standing ovation. I guess that like gave him a lot of love, and he's like, ah, shit. And then I guess he was there for like, because he didn't race in the Indy 500, but he was there for the weekend, and like just feeling that energy, it's like, oh fuck, I gotta do an oval. I want to be here next year racing the Indy 500. And then also like Connor Daly is another driver, and I guess he has a lot of access and with like people who like own the track there. And they basically just gave, like, while they were like packing up and leaving to the next race, like when he's here in the States, like he doesn't have a place he lives. He's like lives in the RV he drives around to like each race at. And so he was just like hanging out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Like he'd wake up in the morning, like take his bike, go on the track, and he was just like just getting a real feel for it. And then like when he was done, like turned in the keys to somebody and drove off to Detroit. So yeah, so he's gonna do one oval, which it's the slowest oval, so it'll be presumably more safe than all these other ovals.
Presumably.
And then Pato O'Ward takes the lead in the championship. He he got third in the first race, and then he came in first in the second race, and he passed Joseph Newgarden in like the last 3 laps. It was a really exciting race, and he started like 12th or something like that, and he like managed to get the way to the top. So yeah, he's got he's got 2 wins, that's more than everybody else, because there's a bunch of people with 1 wins, but nobody with 2 wins. But he only took he only takes championship by 1 point. So, but that'll be exciting if he continues, because he's with Arrow McLaren, and that'll be like, if they win, that'll be like I'll be a new team that wins in like the last 15 years. But unfortunately, like his teammate, Felix Rosenqvist, like he had a really bad crash. He's long term, he's okay. Short term, he's not medically cleared for the next race. So it's probably just something like that, because like he basically went straight into a wall. And it was fucking weird, because like I don't know if they figured it out. The McLaren said like, yeah, we found the problem, we fixed it, but like, yeah, he was like taking a corner, and then his car just accelerated into a wall.
Oh yeah, that's a problem.
And like you go to like the replay of it, and it's like, and then they said like, it wasn't like the gas pedal got stuck or something weird with his feet. The throttle just stayed open for some reason. So that was fucking weird. So yeah, but I think he'll be back maybe next race. But and then another weird thing, Rinus VeeKay. Yeah, I believe he's from the Netherlands.
Okay.
Which he's kind of, somebody explained it, like his history. His weird is because you think, because he's like from the Netherlands, he would be in the whole like F2, F3 scene for racing. But no, his like parents like took him over here to learn racing. So he's kind of grown up in the American racing tradition, and now he's in IndyCar. So that's pretty weird. Okay. That's interesting. Anyways, so he was on his bicycle and like hit like a pothole or something and flew over his handlebars, and because he didn't want to land on his face, he turned and landed directly on his shoulder. Yeah, he did. He had to have surgery, and they fixed it, but he's not medically cleared for the next race. And so they had this guy Oliver Askew. He's been subbing for all these different people, and so now that you have 2 people out for this next race. So Oliver Askew is going to substitute for Rinus VeeKay, and who's coming in to replace Felix Rosenqvist? Kevin Magnussen. So the Haas boys are in IndyCar now. And Kevin Magnussen, when he was there, he was also there in Detroit for the IMSA Racing Series, and he put it on pole, and him and his team won the race that weekend too. So he has a race win underneath his belt. So yeah, now he's going to do an IndyCar race this week. That's a funny thing. Listen to him talk about it. He says, like, I've never been more unprepared for a race in my life.
Yeah. You're going to jump right into IndyCar.
Because he said the last time he raced a single seater was that Abu Dhabi race in in December with F1. That was the last single seater race he did. So they had qualifying this today, and he finished 21st, but he wasn't last. So there's that. But he's like a second and a half off the pace. But like you said, he's like extremely. He had 14 laps of practice, and then he was just shoved into qualifying. So.
Get into that car.
But so that's just kind of fun stuff. And then we'll see Kevin Magnussen might be in IndyCar next year. Apparently his dad was in IndyCar like in the 90s. His dad is also a race car driver.
So that explains why you moved your kid to another country. Some people go out of their way for kids. That's really going out of it. But now it makes sense.
Well, Kevin Magnussen and his dad, I can't remember his name, another Magnussen, they're going to do a father-son 24-hour Le Mans race. So that's pretty cool.
Wow. It could be good or bad.
I believe that is all the racing. And Grosjean almost caught his RV on fire. So he apparently burnt the bread he was baking. So
okay.
But yeah, we made light of it. I mean, I doubt he would. If you fuck up baking bread, I don't think you're gonna burn the house down. So. Yeah. Usually that's some sort of oil fire that will burn everything to the ground.
Yeah, that's like hot grease and stuff where it can spread.
Or air gets in it just right, and it just like.
Well, we read a book. We read a very, very quick read, very, not dense topic at all.
It is a quick read.
Understand. Yeah, it's not.
But it's streamlined for a reason.
Yeah.
Because there's some things missing from this book.
Yes, this is the Nine Fox Gambit, written by Yoon Ha Lee, who's Korean, I take it. And its main character is Kel Cheris, which really her name's Cheris because Kel is just the.
Okay, is that a fact? Okay, because I always kind of. Because I always talk about Kel, and I always kind of took that as like a race thing, but I wasn't sure.
It's a faction within the overarching government here, which is called the Hexarchate, which is this is a book based on math that becomes science fiction at some point, but it's also written by a math professor. So
yeah, but the math doesn't really mean anything. They just kind of say it's kind of the math just equals magic, and then you're like, all right.
Yeah, it's math magic.
Because I kind of compare it to Revenger. Where it's like it's a science fiction, but it's kind of has more a magical intonation to it. Where it's like we're in science fiction world, and then just weird, unexplainable shit happens, and so, but it seems more like magic than it is like science fiction.
Yeah, it's based on that theory that at some point when technology advances so far, it's essentially the same as magic because
science
really
is indistinguishable from magic.
Clearly. Yeah, that's sort of what we're dealing with.
The only thing I gather is like, and it's like because there's a lot of stuff that you just have to. They'll just introduce a concept and they won't explain it, so it's up to you to what it means. Like, what's a lens moth? I don't know. A drone? What's a What's a cinder moth? I don't know. Spaceship. Like usually the moth stuff like. relegates to a spaceship, but like fuck if I know. It's like, is it just a spaceship? Why do they call it mobs? Is it an actual mob? I don't know.
Yeah, is it bioorganic technology? Is it,
Nope.
And I don't have the answer to that. I just assume it's some kind of machine with some kind of biological substrate, and because you have robots in this, they're
and they look like animals, or occasionally, but they're built in.
Yeah, and they're sentient. Everyone knows they're sentient, but no one wants to.
Yeah, well, they
their
also have like
sentience.
a different language. Like they don't necessarily speak like a normal language, but you can understand. It's kind of like R2D2 in a way. Yeah.
Well, they flash lights, but yeah.
But like but I think like
Well,
one of
anyway,
the big concepts is like this idea of the oh fuck no, I just immediately because they talk about calendrical rot and like calendrical heresy, this whole calendrical thing where it's about like is like it's some what I interpret it as, it's something that like science fiction has gone or science has gone so far in this world that the idea of time and space has changed completely, and that's why things seem magical, because of this whole calendrical thing.
Yeah.
Because it like keeps order in the universe, and it's like while there are people like you're not matching our calendar. That's like what we must fight them because this thing is the order of the universe and it's completely human made and science based.
Well, yeah, it's called the origin of it is it's called
Okay.
calendrical mechanics or consensus mechanics. They use those two terms interchangeably, and it's basically mathematics. And it was used. The old version of the hexarchate was the heptarchate, which is like the older form of government they had. But depending on what calendar you're using, it gives you access to like what they call invariant weapons, or like exotic weird weapons. But depending on which calendar you're using, you don't have you don't have access to everything, because I guess the math won't flow together. It's vague, but it does mean something to how they organize their society. But they're just an organized totalitarianism. Like their society is, their civilization is awful. But then again, so is everyone else's, because it's essentially just humans vying for power through whatever complicated bullshit mechanisms that humans come up with to have power over others. In this case, it's calendrical mechanics. Because if you don't believe like the certain people, they're going.
You don't believe in June? You must die.
Yeah, essentially. Well, it's also like calendrical mechanics is a physical force too. That was explained, but very loosely, because that's what this Fortress of Shattered Needles. It basically, the reason it was so important that they recapture is because it projects the calendrical mechanics in that region of space. And it uses like what did they call them? Lenses or projectors or something.
Is that the
There's so
invariant
many
ice
things
shield or
thrown at
something?
No, that's a form of defense they have, because they're using a different calendar, because they can use invariant ice to protect the. But remember, they had to have people do it, and that's why Jadao, the shade that inhabits our main character, said, "Oh yeah, they got people doing it, so their reaction time is lower because they couldn't trust machines to do it because they were in a calendrical heresy or something enabled him to get through the invariant ice, which is a shield essentially."
But yeah, we start with Kel, like she's in a battle, and apparently she uses some like weird math to win the battle, but like at great cost, but she won. So she's both in trouble and in being promoted at the same time. They're fighting the eels. Now, are the eels just like a name of a faction of humans, or are they supposed to be like actual eels or something?
As far as I know, there's no aliens in this universe. It's all people, because it wouldn't make sense. Maybe there are, and I missed it. But these seem like people, and their belief in this common, I don't know, this common, calendrical. Yeah, whatever. it's kind of frustrating sometimes, even though I did like the book.
Well, I think the most interesting stuff is like when we get to where it's like, so you have people that like, there's some people that are essentially immortal through, devices, but most people go insane from the immortality. But there's one guy who hasn't gone insane from immortality, and he's not telling what the secret is. And then you have like this one guy, this general, who's like trapped in some. It's like his mind is trapped in some like hard drive essentially, and then like they merge his mind with hers because they want to like use like her ideas and this guy's ideas because he was like never defeated in battle to try to get through to this fortress. What's the fortress called? Was it something Needles? Yeah, the Fortress of Shattered Needles.
Or something like that.
Okay.
Scattered Needles. Yeah, and his name is Shuo Jadao, or just Jadao, because he's part of the Shuo's faction. So, faction name comes first.
And but like they go to his backstory, and it's like, I forget, for some reason he was in a battle, and then he decided to basically like kill his entire unit, and then he's just
entire army.
And then they captured him, and then so like, oh, he's fucking insane. Let's put him in a hard drive because he's still like a great general. And so you have this whole thing where like this potential crazy guy, you just put her in her head, and he has the power to possibly manipulate her and do all these things to her. And they give her a gun, and it's like, okay, this is a weird exotic gun, and if he does anything weird, you kill him with it. It's like, how do I do that? You shoot a shadow, or you shoot yourself in the head. It's like, will that kill me? Yeah.
It's called a carrion gun. There's a lot of weird names for shit like that, but yeah, remember that because it plays a role later on in the story.
So that's kind of the cool thing, because like their whole like rapport is like really interesting. I think that's like where the book picks up. Is like, this is weird and interesting. It's not just a bunch of weird sci-fi stuff. It's this weird like buddy comedy of like, it's like 24 hours or another, or 48 hours, but with generals and soldiers.
Yeah. Yeah, because she's always called Brevet General Kelcheris. She's like way younger than all the people she's in charge of, and they know it. But they also, again, the weird political, machinations of this universe make it strange. And I like how there's different factions, and if you read further, there's high factions and low factions, because basically the Kel are considered like soldiers, but they're also seen as being easily manipulated by the other factions, and because they follow orders blindly, and they have a system for that is, what's it called, formation instinct, where you can't really disobey orders even if it's suicide. And see, back when the Jadao was in charge, they didn't have formation instinct yet. It's something more recent.
Yeah, so it's a even better way to. So like Jadao, he's been like inserted into other people throughout the times, but he doesn't necessarily remember all of them. He just knows it's happened, and it's like, but like, so at the end of this, do I always go crazy? It's like, I don't know, maybe.
Well, it's like the symbol of the Kel. They call it the Ash Hawk, but all the Kel call it the Suicide Hawk, because basically anyone who's a Kel is going to die in some kind of battle. Usually,
but that,
but
that's also like where Jadao in his like mind form or whatever can manipulate Cheris, is because she recognizes him as a general, and thus everything she says, she has the formation instinct kicks in to basically everything he says.
Yeah. Unless she chooses to, like, she tries to work her way around it mentally, like almost like, how can I make him not ask me this question? And there's all those, and no one else around her can hear or see
unless somebody else has like weird exotic shit with them or something. Because it's like the other immortal guy. If he's nearby, he can hear Jadao, but like most people can't.
Oh, the Shuos, the Master of Assassins guy. Well, I'm using my Dune terms now. But yeah, the Shuos that originally manipulated Jadao into... Because you find out this is all part of a long-running conspiracy by the end of the book. And Jadao is actually a good guy because he wants democracy, and he says the way we're running things is horrible, and I killed all my friends to try to foment this. But he's been around 500 years or something in the Shadow Crib,
because he's like
it.
he's basically the other immortal that hasn't gone crazy, maybe, but they still
we don't know. Yeah.
But he's not immortal like the other guy. He's immortal because basically they downloaded his mind into this weird thing. I mean, if they did or whatever, it could be they transubstantiated his form into this weird shadow shit or whatever. Yeah, because like she literally projects the shadow, and his shadow is like some weird form of the is it the Firehawk form? Is he like the Nine Fox Gambit form or the Nine Fox form?
No, he's the Nine Fox. Basically 9 eyes looking out of the shadows at you. That's how I understood it. And then there's someone within the Fortress of Scattered Needles that's like the main heretic. She's like manipulating everyone, but she's really kind of doing her own thing, because you always hear things from her.
Yeah, there's like interstitials where it's like she's writing a note to somebody, which has come off as weird.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, that's yeah. There's
Although you can say that
this,
about the entirety of this book. Wait, what the fuck's going on?
I'm gonna say I like this book, but it's a book that comes with homework, and if you don't like that, you're not gonna like this book.
There's more to the series, and like reading the wiki kind of makes me feel like this guy bothered to put exposition in the other two books. I'm not sure, but the wiki is also pretty light on things, because basically this book needs like a spark or cliff notes just so you can like read the book. It's like, oh, this is what's going on. But I mean, this is why you compare it to Dune, right? Where it's in Dune, there's a lot of things where we just like you just introduce a concept. It's not explained. It's up to you to imagine what it is. But Dune has been turned into various visual formats, and so it makes it easier. Where it's like,
right. Oh, then there's a rare book that I own. A very old copy of, called the Dune Encyclopedia, which explains everything in the original Dune, and it is literally an encyclopedia. There's no story in it. It's just like, this character did this. This is what J rays do. Nuclear bomb, and it's all kinds of weird shit. So this reminded me of that, but with a lot less exposition. Like in Dune, they would stop and tell you, like, what is the weirding way? Oh, it projects sound and thought into like a force. You kind of have a weird idea of what's going on, where they just introduce weapons and concepts, like they had the decapitation gun or whatever, but like wiped out half the Kel, and don't know why, but then the Kel bring forward like their hell type
or there's like some stuff where it's like guns are useless in this situation, so you need knives, and then because of the whole calendrical mathematics thing, it's like it's more advantageous to like fight somebody with guns with knives because of how this world works.
Well, it's because the guns were decomposing, and in the heresy they'd introduced, because they could always change what they're doing. But then Jadao has like horror weapons, like the Threshold Winnowers, which seems like an attack out of a Jeff Vandermeer novel. It's like eyes grew all over them, and they were shining with corpse lights. Like, what the fuck kind of weapon is this? Like, I don't understand. Like, it disintegrated everyone. Oh, but no,
is corpse light? Is that like radiation, or is that something different?
I don't know. It's like suddenly I was reading like something from the Southern Reach. It's like, what kind of weapon is this? Sounds like something from a Vandermeer novel, but it killed everyone they needed to kill, so they could take over the Fortress of Scattered Needles. But also then you find out that Kel Cheris is just a sacrificial pawn, because when the fleet that they think is going to show up and help them, it just kills them all, because they know that Jadao's too dangerous if you have him out too long, and he's already infected Cheris with his thoughts about democracy and how evil the Hexarchate really is, and Um, but yeah, there's a lot of shit thrown at you, and if you don't have patience and you want just a read where it's like, oh, I can follow this, this is not your book. However, if you do like complex stories that require further reading, this is a really fucking cool book. But it's not going to be all things to all people. You're either going to like it.
Yeah, I think I want to get to the rest of the series, but I feel like I want to wait till like there's good like ancillary resources. Like I need that encyclopedia before I go into these next books, because I want to have a firmer grasp on all this stuff.
Because you explained what the carrion gun does for Cheris, but when the fleet shows up and betrays them and they fire carrion cannons and everyone is reduced to crystals that you can eat and restore their memories, except her for some reason, for reasons that are never explained. It's like, I want to know more about why that happened and what that means. Just getting vivid descriptions of her like eating glass and it's like penetrating her heart, but then she has all the memories of Jadao permanently. And it's like, okay, this is I don't understand.
Well, I think that was like a merging
on
of the two, where it's like now it's a new character of both Jadao and Cheris or something. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, because Cheris is the math genius and Jadao is the tactician.
Yeah,
Remember, he said he's terrible at math. That's why he needs her. So it kind of makes sense. But I guess in the other books, she just becomes her own character, and he is someone separate now. I didn't read the other books, so. But yeah, it's.
But I can see. Yeah, I love reading the reviews of it, because they're. Because they go all over the place. There's people that fucking hated it. There's people that love it, and I believe both reviews.
Yeah, I can see why. See, I like stories like this, though. This is kind of like, though this is in my wheelhouse. It's like, yeah, this is why I read the Gap Cycle like once every 2 years. It's like, that's mind-bendingly complicated. Concepts presented or not, like, once you understand the technology, the gap drive, the amnion, all that, then it's just the characters lying to one another. The whole story. Everyone's playing really unlikely, almost suicidal, head games with other people, and some people are robots, and some people aren't, and some people are amnion. But this is like more of I like the characters; they're well described. I don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. I wish I could understand it better. I get the idea. I mean, it's not like it's in another language, and it's not. You figure out pretty quick that the Hexarchic is bad.
I remember like there's a guy who makes the director of the Dark Souls series. Like a lot of the storytelling in Dark Souls is very obtuse. Like it's up to you. And he said he got like the idea for it is like when he would read, because English is like, he's still like, it's a second language, but he's still like not that fluent with it. And he would read English books, but he'd only like retain so much information. And so he'd have to just fill in the gaps in his own mind as like what the story meant. And it's like,
because he's reading and translating at the same time.
But he'd have to like keep moving forward. So he'd just make up things himself. It's like, I think this is what it means. And that's what kind of reading this book is. And I think where a lot of it is kind of a disconnect is like, I don't want to imagine the wrong thing, but I have to imagine something. And like, you just want somebody to tell you like, did I do it right? And then there's nobody here to tell you if you're doing it right.
Including the author of the book, who gives very, very few interviews. So. Did one on NPR once. It was actually as an American. So I was surprised. I thought this was translated from Korean. Initially.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
It kind of feels a little. There's definitely some cultural touchstones there.
Well, I think it feels translated and is like, I think something's missing here. It's like, it's called Lost in Translation.
Yeah. It's a little tough, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I don't regret it. Like I said, I'm not going to follow up, and we're not going to do like an expansive 10 story series about this, because you either love it or you hate it.
But it's not that long.
That way. So
if you can get through it, it's not like because I imagine if like they really added exposition to this book, it would have been like a 30-hour book, just full of explanations.
Yeah.
And maybe that's, I don't have to get into the reason is why, but like, that might be a reason why he just didn't explain anything. It's like, I'll leave that up to you.
Well, this book has an interesting development history. It was very hard to get it published because a lot of people reading this is like, okay, who's the intended audience here? Math professors and people that are deep sci-fi, and then the original manuscript for this has been destroyed.
Oh yeah, it was in a flood, right?
It was lost in a flood. So everything has it's been redone a little bit. I think once the series ends, I think that people have said it's like, yeah, we want this with a, like a 3-book with an encyclopedia as the 4th book. It's, but yeah, there were some things that the concept I didn't get. I didn't know, why is this horrifying? It's like, oh, okay, because it does that. But it's like they roll it out like, oh, here it comes, the big thing, and it's, again, like in something like the gap cycle, when you talk about a singularity device, it's like, oh, I know what you're talking about. Now, I can't imagine how that would work or how it's going to look in this universe, but I understand it. But when you start talking about things like decapitation cannons, it's like, does that just blow people's heads off? Well, no. The arms, legs, it's like, well, okay, I understand the concept. It sounds bad, but it sounds like everyone's head's coming off at one time for reasons. Like physics has changed, or the rules.
We didn't carry the one, and
universe,
then their
and
head fell off.
Yeah, we didn't have the magic coin or something, or the invariant coin. And when you get into like how the rules change, because I would read calendrical mechanics, and immediately my brain would go to like quantum mechanics or something. It's like, and maybe I'm misreading it. So like, oh, is the structure of the universe different with these generators, and how the fuck do they do this? How do they generate this continuity of I'm saying it again, of calendrical. How do you project calendrical stability, which is basically like this form of math and physics operates in this realm? Like, how does that even work? And does it take a nuclear fuel pellet, or what does it do? How does this work?
It takes a giraffe cinder.
And I know some authors. Yeah, it just makes me wonder sometimes. It's like, I know leaving the reader, not giving the reader all the information and not explaining everything is fine. But when it's like every concept in the book, it's like, okay, I do have an imagination, but it's like sometimes I'm lost. It's the most challenging book I've read in a while, though. And I've read some real dense books before, but this one was definitely like, what? It's a very original. These are original. This is original ideas. This isn't like this is from Star Trek. This is from I know I've compared it to other books, but it's not like Dune. It is like Dune. It's in its complexity, but they're not stealing things from Dune. This is like really original.
Yeah, the closest thing I'd compare it to is Revenger, but like Revenger's more of a young adult novel, but like things are explained there, but a lot of stuff is just kind of left up to like, hey, what if pirates were in space and it was magic?
Well, the thing with Revenger that was cool was it was like a universe of we don't understand this technology anymore, and we're speaking with like a 17th century like sea shanty dialect or something. It's like, that's what made it cool, because like, oh, what they're talking about is a black hole. They just call it a swallower. It's like, oh yeah, that works. But
Revenger, you get into like they'll like there was like a whole chapter on like how the economy fell apart and came back together and all that stuff, and there's these ancient race, like they're just dead now and they just have derelict ships with like cool prizes in them, but
it's Dungeons and Dragons in space. It's like, go on the ship, and of course it has like trap black holes in it. It's like, that's weird, but okay, that's a hell of a trap. But yeah, that was what was interesting about Revenger. Now, the thing with the economy being based on human souls and the coins and the weird spider creatures that were supposed to run the economy, I think that was all a metaphor. Because the problem in Revenger is the economy kept collapsing. That's why they've like jumped back 500 years technologically, and things are a mystery. It's like stealth equipment is stuff, and it's
Yeah, sometimes Revenger is like, because it's a young adult novel, it's restrained by that. But now there's plenty of swearing in this book.
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's people having sex, even though they could be killed for it, and we don't know why. It's like they're people of equal rank in an army that could die at any moment, and they have some time alone on the ship. Yeah, why not have sex? Well, they could be killed for it. That seems unnecessarily cruel, because they're going to be killed by a decapitator gun, or invariant ice, or some other horrible death. You know, or their spacesuits are going to enter a zone where they don't coincide with the physics, so they'll just decohere and they'll just be exposed to vacuum. It's like, we don't know why this is happening, but it is. But yeah, that's because there's no good guys. Like the heretics are obviously bad, but the Hexarchic is also horrible. It's like, yeah, these forms of government suck, where it's all conformity based, because we're always fighting. Because in this case, they've made like religion and math into the same thing. It's like heresy. It's like, well, that's a religious term, but it's against our math system. It's like, okay, so now you've made math.
Calendrical heresy is a term that sparks a lot of like imagination. It sounds cool. So,
yeah,
what is that?
It sounds cool.
Don't worry, you won't know by the end of the book, but you can imagine something.
Does that have to do with a calendar, or does that have to do with using the wrong spaghetti strainer?
What if it was both and neither at the same time? It's quantum calendrical.
Yeah, like you pour spaghetti into the top to drain it, and like, you know, the fourth dimension comes out the bottom. Whoops! I guess I'm committing calendrical heresy.
Now I want to see that game show. Like, whoops! You've committed calendrical heresy.
Pasta opens up the universe.
It's a Mobius noodle.
Yeah. Goes on forever. A never-ending strip of starch. That makes me feel slightly...
Go upside down and backwards and never touch the other side.
Take some mild hallucinogens and think about it. All right, so 9 Vox Gambit. Yeah. Read it or don't.
I did an Audible book, but I hear some people suggest reading it so it's easier to like stop and reread a passage over again. Like, wait, what? For this, you just kind of like, I'll keep going.
Nah, with me, I like to listen to it if it's dense, because I'll always remember, like, and then I'll go back and do the ancillary research. Whereas if I'm reading it and it's dense, I'll be like, I'm falling asleep. Because I don't read like sitting up at a desk. I read in bed. So I always listen to it. And then, you know, I'll go back and do the footwork myself. So I find I retain things better if they're read to me. Like sometimes at work, I'll say things aloud. Like someone will tell me to go get something. I'll be like, what's the part number? And they'll tell me, and I'll just say it aloud. And I'll get a weird look. But I'll always remember that part number. Whereas if you just throw a bunch of numbers at me, I'm like, well, I'll go get the blue things and whatever, XXB, whatever you need. And maybe that'll be right, and maybe it isn't. Maybe I don't care. But, yeah. So anyway, we watched the movie this week.
No.
Oh, we're not doing the movie?
Andrew.
Oh, is that why the line was struck through it on the note? Oh, I thought that was generic. Well, we didn't watch a movie this week.
I thought that was clear. I'm sorry.
Well, I looked at it on my phone, and I thought, well, either my phone...
So I wanted to keep it on there, you know, when we eventually do it, but I decided to strike it out. To say, like, not now, but...
Okay.
Well, whoops, I hope you don't forget about the movie.
Nah, I'll just...
Or is it forgettable?
Probably, yeah. We'll talk about it.
At least we're not going to watch Witches, which I saw a YouTube video of a review of that, and that looked pretty terrible.
Yeah, I'm not interested. That goes more into their animations, the animation stuff he did. That's what I'm not a big.
I mean, it's live action, but it's very. There's a lot of like, it's like we're going to use CG to like animate a human person, like they're like it's a cartoon character, which is it's a it's the whole like Black Mirror version of Polar Express.
Yeah. Yep. What? Well, I can't think of it. Never mind.
Sorry.
Let me look up my here real
Have you seen Loki yet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I've
yeah.
watched the two that are available.
I really like that.
Yeah. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I do too. Well, I like that actor. That what's his name?
Yeah.
Tom Hiddleston, something like that. He's always like, he doesn't seem threatening, but I mean, I don't know what he's like in real life, but that character never
Yeah.
seems threatening, but he is. And then I like his foil, the guy who's kind of
Wilson.
upbeat. And, yeah, he seems naive,
Yeah.
but he isn't. But then he is.
Or it's like there's like points where he seems like he's
odd.
trying to like inspire Loki, but then like later on it's like, oh, he's just using him. Like that's fucked up.
Yeah.
But he sounds all wholesome and
Yeah,
folksy when he's using him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's with like a lot of the stuff is like there's, going to be backstories and things that explain these.
But I think it
characters
like, just
more.
has a style and a mood that's like way different from all the other Marvel stuff. So I really like that. So
Yeah. Well, and it's also got an ominous organization, because at first it was the Avengers and then it was all the evil in the galaxy. It's like, oh, now you've got this temporal organization that seems very morally ambiguous in some of its actions and deeds. It's like, because they seem to have this like overarching belief in temporal purity and maintaining
Yeah.
this one timeline, because all the timelines will come together and destroy each other. So yeah, it's a big mission. But also it seems like, oh, these people are really fast and loose with right and wrong also. And they've justified it by saying, well, these
yeah,
people
because that
really
like when
don't
they leave an
exist,
area,
or-
it's like, well, they have to cleanse it. They basically leave a bomb that like will kill anything that's been affected. That'll affect the timeline. It's like, wait, that's just killing a lot of people. But they don't
Yeah.
act like it is.
Yeah, when you're destroying a branch timeline, it's very Donnie Darko. It's like the tangent universe must be destroyed. It's like, yeah, what about all the people that lived their lives there? It's like, well,
They don't
really
count.
What was that weird sci-fi book we read by the guy? Was it Time and Again, about the multiverse detective? Because there was this big event that would always destroy the Earth.
Fuck.
What's that book called? You know what I'm talking about?
Was it the NCIS? Was it the
I think the
NCIS one?
name.
Where she like works for the NCIS? Oh,
Yeah,
fuck.
yeah.
Fuck, what is that called? And there's always like the weird tree that she was like, God damn it.
Yes.
Yeah, I forget that guy's name.
Anyway, whatever that is, I gotta think of that, because that very much reminds me of this this Temporal Enforcement Commission or whatever. I'm probably not getting the name right, but excuse me. But yeah, this is these people seem very morally ambiguous about the state of the universe and what
But
what
that was
their
also the
role in
weird
it
thing where
is.
they said like they were created by like this temporal they
the
just
three
so they weren't
lizards,
like
essentially.
yeah, we're humans on Earth and then we just started doing this job. Like no, they were just created as humans who think they're from Earth that do this job. Because there's always that
Right.
one the Gone World.
The Gone World. Yep, that's it.
There's that part where like the Loki says, "I'm gonna turn you into a fish," and he's like, "Guy's like, what's a fish?" And it's like, "What do you mean, what's a fish?" He's like, "Well, I don't know how scared I should be. I don't know what a fish is." Or they have all the Infinity Stones, or just they're just using them as paperweights because in their universe they're completely useless.
Yeah, they don't mean anything. Like if people touch them and the regular universe they explode, but these things are like, oh yeah, we just kick them around on our desks. we have all this stuff.
But I think, because I believe the next like Thor movie, I think it's called like Thunder and Lightning or something like that. And I think there's a lot of like gender reversal where like I think Natalie Portman will be like a version of Thor in the movie or something like that, or Love and Thunder, I think that's what it's called. And so this series is kind of leading like, oh, I think these are going to be connected somehow.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, that could very well be. There seems to be a lot of stuff going on. Like, this seems like a very expensive, well-produced show, and it's probably a lead-in to other things.
well, one thing was kind of interesting. Like, do you remember the part where like they're taking the elevator down? There's a lot of that weird like architecture where it's just like ribs of science or whatever. Apparently, that's a hallway of a hotel in Atlanta. Like, it looks like that.
I like how the elevator buttons are just a bunch of random letters. They don't correspond. I'm sure there's something like if you look at that, you can decipher something. I'm just not one of those guys, but yeah.
Or the weird like cartoon that explains all the temporal anomalies is just like an actual thing.
Yeah, it's like it seems like an annoying PSA from like the 80s where it's real upbeat, chipper. It's like, this is how we stop the universe from collapsing, because it has like that southern folksy voice. And then you realize that clock's like a real thing in the real universe because Loki tries to hit it when it's on his desk or on the guy's desk or something. And then he has to wear the jacket that says Variant on the back of it. It's like, you're part of the club, but not.
We got you a jacket. So yeah, it's pretty good so far. I need to get back to Falcon the Winter Soldier. I watched like 4 episodes and I just kind of fell off of it. I didn't think it was bad, but it was just kind of, I don't know, wasn't in the right mood for it, I guess.
I'll tell you, that show's good, but it's
Yeah.
also uneven. Like sometimes it's like the main story is cool, but all the sideline shit is like kind of like,
we
okay,
couldn't get the
I understand
loan.
why
Oh
we're doing
no.
it's like describing what the world would be like after the return of half the people on the planet. It's like, oh yeah, all these people that were refugees that were doing important jobs, and now they're just fucked, and they just want to send them back to whatever hellhole they came from, which is now even worse hellhole than before. And it's like, I totally get why that girl and those people feel that way. I think the second Captain America was kind of a weird choice. It's like, this guy seems to have totally the wrong personality, obviously from the outset, to be Captain America.
But come on, he has 3 Medal of Honors.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed to have all the qualifications, but his personality was immediately off-putting. I don't know if he was written that way or just how the actor read the character, but it's like, oh, this is the bad guy, plainly. Or not bad, but definitely someone who's like believes things for the wrong reasons almost. But the guy, the 2 main characters are cool. Falcon and the Winter Soldier guy. It's like, oh, they do a great job because they don't like each other. Bucky's not happy with the world he inhabits, and he's another man out of time that's just kind of angry about everything. And he's also someone who doesn't want to be a puppet because all he's ever been is a puppet. And so he's immediately distrustful of everyone. Like, all the character motivations make sense. Except the immediately bad Captain America, the second. Like, oh, okay, come on. Can you give this guy a reason to be bad? Have there ever been multiple Medal of Honor?
Yes, but I only know ones I've had 2. I don't know anybody that's had 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to get 1.
Yeah, well, most Medal of Honor winners
gotta,
die. Yeah.
Or posthumous, yeah. Not very many living ones.
I believe Dan Daly got 2 Medal of Honor medals.
That's crazy. Did you ever read like guys like Audie Murphy? Like, because because they have like the exact descriptions of what went on.
I haven't read it, but I
it
just
was like,
know
oh,
about
this-
him. But they made a movie about him, and he starred in it.
Well, yeah, I've never seen that one, but I've just the descriptions of what he did. It was like, oh, this person was clearly insane and brave at the same time, or just didn't have any self-preservation, and because he was shot up for
Yeah.
one of the things he did, and he's like, I'm just going to stay on this gun until like I can cover people to get through or whatever. And he'd been shot up a bunch, and it's like, wow.
There's that's Sergeant York guy where he's just like, he took out like 8 machine gun nests in one day, and he's just like, he just got in this mode. It's like, this is how it's done, and he just like takes one. It's like on to the next one, and just like no stop. It's like at every point you could have died at any moment.
Yeah. You've developed this stratagem on the spot, which is essentially charging a machine gun. It's like, well, if I do it this way.
I think that guy, like, he was like from a farm, so like knew how to shoot like really small animals from like a far distance, and I think he was just like very accurate with his shots and was able to like dwindle down the but also I think that dude, he just like get close and threw grenades. So I think there's that too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the fog of war worked in his favor, I think.
Well, also I think there's a thing where like when he was taking down all those machine gun nests, it was like they built a trench and machine gun nest. So it's like all you have to do is like follow the trench line to the next machine gun nest.
Yep. That is true. And yeah, in World War I, it was all like trenches and stuff.
I always like the one in Last Stand of Fox Company where like these guys have this machine gun set up, and like they're killing so many Chinese people that at some point they have to stop shooting to pull the pile of bodies down so they can shoot more people.
Yeah, because the elevation of the gun kept going up as the body stacked up.
It's like, shit.
I like those descriptions of the closest we get to that and ever was and this was from the German perspective in World War II, where they were running out of they weren't running out of ammunition, but they were having to like take snow and stuff on the Eastern Front and like try to melt it so they could keep the barrel cool on the gun, because they actually ran out of barrels. So they had to be very cautious. And the Russians would use wave attacks. They just send hundreds of thousands of people at you. And those guns they had, they had that super rapid fire machine gun. Thing is, you burn the barrel up in those pretty quick, because they have such a high rate of fire. Well, you don't have any barrels to replace them with. Well, you got to like start calling your shots and stuff, and then they'd have the problem where they'd cool the barrel off, but the bullets would just start detonating because the chamber was so hot. It would just explode as soon as it went in there. They'd have a run on, and the gun could explode then because the bullets would just melt in the barrel if it overheated. And it's like, yeah, this is crazy. You're dealing with this, and you got like 1,000 Russians just running at you. And but then the Germans figured out how to time their artillery. Like they'd set up artillery like within 500 yards of the trench, and then they could radio it back when the wave was coming. They just fire artillery at them, which is like, that's just human pulp flying through the air. But all that stuff on the Eastern Front was crazy. Like the Battle of the Citadel, where the Germans were in like a fixed fortification, and the Russians were like, yeah, we're just going to throw them in at, we're just going to storm the Citadel. It's like, it was made to prevent that when dudes had swords. These guys have fucking machine guns now. And they lost, thousands of people. But eventually they could claim a kind of a Pyrrhic victory. And then just like getting rid of all that was the biggest problem in the Eastern Front was people, just all the bodies rotting. It's like couldn't find water to drink anywhere, whether you were German or a Russian. There's probably a damn corpse up the river or something. Or several thousand. But yeah, when you read those old stories of war, it's like, wow. And you don't get a lot of stories from the Eastern Front either. There's like 7 or 8 books that are really good and descriptive. But there's very few from like the German perspective, and I don't think there's any from the Russian perspective that are propaganda. They have some, but you don't know what you're reading with that Russian stuff. They have a lot of good histories of the Great Patriotic War, but you don't know how much of it's true. Because the Russians don't talk about, like, we're just going to throw manpower at this until either everyone's dead or we achieve victory. No, they'll portray it as like a noble sacrifice. What they don't tell you is there's dudes back there with rifles pointing at those guys. Like, if they try to come back, shoot them, which was a much more common tactic in the Red Army than what people realize. That wasn't just, it didn't happen at Stalingrad.
That's how it worked at Last Stand of Fox Company. It's like tourniqueted these guys. They gave them hand grenades and just sent them waves after waves after them.
Oh, is that the Chinese battle doctrine? Tie off their arteries and send them in.
If they came back, you shot them.
Yeah. Yeah, those communist armies are amazing. They always do a good job. Well, that's what unlimited manpower creates that mentality.
And they only attacked at night, so it was an extra fear.
Yeah, there wasn't any night vision back then either.
Well, that's like kind of what equalized it at some point, is because eventually, like, you know, the Americans got beat back pretty far, but then they had built fortifications that they could get behind, and then they had air power, and once they had air power, it's like, well, that's one of the reasons like the Chinese only traveled at night. It's like, because you just, if an airplane saw them in the morning, they just kill all of them, but like, no, can't see them at night.
And it was a lot of those World War II aircraft too, ones with like 6 and 850 caliber forward firing guns. Like, yeah, that's going to do a lot of damage to a group of guys standing around. That was that was the one war where, because people always wondered like which was better, the T-34 or the Sherman. Like the T-34s and the Shermans fought each other in the Korean War, but it was never a fair comparison because the Chinese were basically people they pulled off a farm and said, "You're driving a tank now," against crews that had fought in World War II in German tanks. It was like, well, technically the T-34 is a little more powerful and has a better gun, but not with these guys driving it. It's just like, how much can we beat up? Can we shoot the tracks off these damn things and get some? Oh, flamethrowers were a hugely popular weapon in the Korean War too. We beat these tanks down and get flamethrower people out there. Yeah, they had those. That's right. I do remember. What was that book, The Coldest Winter, or whatever I read? They talked about like the Chinese wave attacks and stuff. They just. Which was insane because these were very well supported, fortified positions, American and South Korean positions they were attacking. So it wasn't like they were running out of ammo or barrels or anything. I mean, when they got cut off, they did, but a lot of Chinese people got killed. And they wanted to drop nuclear bombs on them, too. That was, what's his name, MacArthur's strategy. What they call it, the Cobalt Line. We're just going to blast at the border of China and North Korea, so it's too radioactive for him to come through. It's like, then he got fired after that. Didn't understand what's why Trump was fired. It's like, because you're a fucking lunatic is why. We use nuclear bombs near China, as ally of Russia. What do you think's going to happen? The Russians are going to unleash their 5 bombs on us.
I mean, that's why the whole war is confusing. It's just nobody knew. It's like, what's war going to become?
Yeah. What's it gonna be? All right. Well, I think it's time for bed. Time to sleep. So this week for the American Greed Factory podcast is
Goodbye, America.